Well, one of our theme gardens this year is our kitchen garden, which is where all of our food crops are going to be grown. And one of the first crops that we're planting are the potatoes. Now, it's prime potato planting time in Oklahoma. If you live in the South, you could start planting your potatoes as early as about February 15th and plant them clear through about the middle of March if you live in the north part of the state. Well, the first thing that you want to do when you're going to plant potatoes is to work your soil nice and deep. You can do this ahead of time so that they can develop a nice tuber. Also, you want to purchase some seed potatoes or tubers specifically grown so that you can plant them in the ground at your garden center or from a mail order catalog. Now, the reason for this is that if you go to your produce section of the grocery store, those potatoes have a lot of times been treated with a growth inhibitor that will inhibit sprouting. Also, those potatoes may or may not be disease-free. So you're going to have better luck if you use a tuber that is specifically produced for seed. Now, we're planting two varieties of potatoes this year. We're planting Yukon Gold and also Kennebec. These are two potatoes that are grown in this area. The Yukon Gold is a little bit earlier potato and the Kennebec is a later potato. Now, what you want to do ahead of time is to cut these tubers up into seed pieces, and you want to cut them so that there's at least one eye present in the potato. Now, the piece of the potato can be about 2 to 3 ounces. It doesn't have to be real large. Just make sure that you've got at least one eye present. Now, what the cutting does is it breaks the dominance of these end sprouts so you don't have multiple sprouting in your potatoes. And you also want to cut them in kind of blocky pieces. Now, they don't have to be really large. 2 to 3 ounces is fine. And just cut those up. Now, don't plant those right away. What you want to do is let those sit out for 2 to 3 days and let them suberize or callus over. Now, here I've got some potatoes that I cut earlier, and you can see the difference if I hold these up. Basically, what has happened is a callus has formed over the surface of this. Now, if you were to plant this newly cut potato in the ground, that is a wide area for diseases to come into the potato, and so you don't want to plant that one. However, this has formed kind of a barrier there, and it's ready to go ahead and plant into the ground. Now, you can dust these with sulfur, and that will help also with combating any diseases that might enter into the potato. Then you want to dig a trench, and this trench is about 4 inches deep, and that's how deep we're going to plant our potatoes. And just put them down with the cut side down so that our eyes are facing up. Now, you plant potatoes actually about 12 inches apart in the row, with your rows being about 3 feet apart. I'll just go ahead and plant the rest of this row. And then I'm just going to cover this up with soil. Now, as these potatoes grow, they should emerge from the soil in about 3 weeks. It'll depend on the weather here as to how long it takes. So be sure to mark your rows so you don't go dig your potatoes up planting the rest of your garden. Now, after these emerge and they start to grow, you'll want to do what they call hilling up or mounding around the potato. The reason for this is that when you plant a potato tuber in the ground, all of the new tubers are going to form above this potato. They won't go down deeper in the soil. So the more mounding you have, the more area you have for your potatoes to grow. And the thing that you don't want to happen is for your potatoes to sit on the top of the soil, because if the sun shines on them, they'll develop green on the skin, and those potatoes are not good to eat. They're actually poisonous. That green is an alkaloid, and it is poisonous. So you want your potatoes to be covered while they're growing so they won't develop green on the skin. Now, we're also going to try planting our potatoes another method in addition to the rows, because if you'll notice here, I've got one row, I'm going to plant another row over here, and that's 3 feet apart. We're going to try a method that's good to use if you have a smaller garden area, and that is we're going to try growing some of our potatoes up in cages. Now, if you can see here, I've got 2 cages. They're about 1.5 feet tall and about 1.5 feet in diameter. And you'll notice that if I put these right next to each other, I'm going to put a potato down in each one, that I've actually got potatoes in a smaller space than I would have if I planted them in trenches. So we're going to go over here and we're going to start potatoes using this method and see how they compare to potatoes that are planted in the ground in trenches. Now the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to try filling these with different things. Now in one set of our cages we're going to try kind of a soil and compost mix to fill and heal this up as it grows. And in our other cage we're going to try using straw to cover our potatoes as they grow. Now, a lot of people like to grow their potatoes in straw because it does make a cleaner potato. And we're going to see how that does for us. Now, again, I'm just going to plant my piece in here about 4 inches and cover it. And as that potato starts to grow, I will continue to mound soil in there until we reach the top. Well, in addition to planting potatoes, there are a lot of other vegetables that we can plant right now. And these include beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, kohlrabi, lettuce, onions, peas, radish, spinach, turnips, and Swiss chard. And speaking of Swiss chard, if you've looked at any seed catalogs or any gardening magazines this year, you've probably seen this. This is Bright Lights Swiss chard, and we grew some out a little bit early to see what it looked like, because you always wonder if it's really that pretty. And you can see here we've got some planted that is absolutely gorgeous. It has a nice stem color here of the nice ruby red. Then we've got kind of pink. Here we've got some yellow and almost an orange color here. Now we're actually going to be direct seeding this into our garden right now for a rainbow effect, and hopefully this will come up good. Now you could actually plant your Swiss chard into, say, 4 packs or something like that. Let them grow a while, and about 3 to 4 weeks they'll actually be showing the stem color. And then you could select out the colors that you would most like to plant in your garden. So this is going to be a really good crop for something like an edible landscape.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.